This week, I take a look at the AVN whose main character has the highest body count of any I have played. Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week, I take a look at Come Home by RJ Rhodes. In my 21 Adult Games for 2023 video, I unintentionally referred to RJ as a he. She is, in fact, a she.
Okay, that's my bad.
Come Home is currently on the 14th update of 20, with update 15 in the works. The game is a little different than many other AVNs. This is sometimes a good thing and sometimes a bad thing. This is one of the reasons this review is a little longer than the norm, so bear with me. You play a 21 or 22-year-old man who comes home from college due to his father's disappearance. You enroll in a local college to finish up your degree, all the while repairing old relationships and fostering new ones. This is a dating sim at its core, and you can tell that Come Home will be pretty divisive depending on who plays it. I will talk more about this in later sections. By the way, if you didn't know, I just set up a Patreon to help me make up the costs for running the channel, with the hope that I will be able to put out more content in the future. For everyone at the $5 and above tier, I'll release uncensored reviews with some extra not safe for work commentary and extra lewd scenes, so you can get a sense of what to expect. Thanks for even considering it. You can see my Patreon link in the description or go to patreon.com/adultgamereviews. Okay, this is going to be a hard AVN to review because so much of this review is subjective. I do not expect everyone to agree with it, but I hope that it will allow you to make the judgment if the game is right for you. Okay, let's get into the good. I was immediately impressed by all the romance options. There are a total of 19 female love interests, one of whom is a wheelchair user, another that is immunocompromised, and one trans woman. Then there's Bi.
What's your real name?
That is my real name.
The lone dude, for a total of 20 love interests. And yes, his name is Bi. One thing that I truly loved was that each character felt distinct. They all had backstories that I felt fit the character with, a few exceptions. And while I didn't pursue every romanceable option, there was no negative for not pursuing some. If you did want to pursue a love interest, you can go to the menu and actively click on the little heart next to the character to deselect the quest from showing up. I also really liked the character guide to help you keep track of the characters and figure out what step you're on. Oh, and by the way, there's also a ton of content already. The AVN took a lot longer to review because it took me a while to finish it, which I thought was overall a good thing. The story isn't told in one coherent plot. You have 20-ish separate storylines. Each character is its own storyline and most don't overlap, with the exception of the main plot. This made the AVN feel like a Monster of the Week TV show, think Supernatural, except with love interests.
Highest body count wins.
Done.
It was different, and I actually enjoyed this. As an aside, one of my favorite characters was Brandy. She's a food reviewer, streamer. I don't know if she was supposed to be like a mukbang girl, but you didn't actually see her eat a whole lot. But anyway, you appear on stream with her a few times. Reading the comment sections on these streams were some of my favorite parts of Brandy's story, but any story really. It was really funny, and the guy that kept asking for feed pics cracked me up every single time. Okay, moving to something more visual. The body renders looked pretty good. The bodies were realistic and diverse, and the animations in the adult scenes were also pretty well done, and many had minor controls. Not every adult scene had animations, but they were a nice touch and much appreciated. Okay, moving into more of the audio stuff. You can tell that RJ started to add voice acting into the game with a couple of characters, and some character noises in some of the adult scenes, but these are few and far between. I do like the attempt at adding more voice acting, and hopefully she will add more and more as updates progress. The music was fine, it set the tone, but many of the songs did repeat, so the music was passable. Okay, there's a good variety of lewd scenes, and they touch upon a lot of different kinks, everything from threesomes to group stuff to cosplay and exhibitionism, but there is more variety than many AVNs, even if the kinks are explored in a very basic way. Once you get certain characters to a certain threshold as far as percentage goes and how you're building the relationships, it felt like every sequence had an adult scene.
Nice.
That's pretty good from my perspective. That's it, let's move on to the bad. Okay, getting right into it, I wasn't impressed by the characters' faces. The quality of the faces varied greatly. Look at Ms. Welsh's face right here. This is beautiful. Now look over here. It lacked details. It's possible that the renders have been getting better with each update, but I tended to jump around a bit with each of the relationships, so it was kind of hard to tell. But overall, I just wasn't that impressed with their faces. All right, moving into a little bit more of a hot topic. I'm just want to say FYI, there's going to be minor spoilers in this section, so if you don't want to listen to this section, you can skip ahead. Something that I had a hard time finding the right words for is that many of the female characters follow very well-known tropes. I mentioned that the dialogue was pretty well done, but the characters themselves could be written with varying success. You have Ms. Mills, the older stern lawyer who likes to be in control, to Mi Cha, the timid Chinese, I think she's Chinese, exchange student with stern controlling parent, to Reba, the poor white southern girl who just wants to go to college but doesn't feel right about leaving her racist grandmother. There's a difference between using common culture norms of a more collectivist culture like Mi Cha to using outright stereotypes. You have Izzy, the African-American girl who likes to wear hoodies, hang out at the park. The first few interactions ended with her running from the police. She really likes chicken wings, she sells drugs, and takes care of her brothers because her mom's in jail. All social commentary aside, this just felt lazy. It's one thing to have 20 romance options, but that makes it more difficult to flesh out unique characters. Unfortunately, there were a few characters that felt like walking stereotypes. It made me not want to interact with them because stereotypes are boring.
This is boring. I'm bored now.
When a character's whole purpose is to fill a stereotype, it doesn't make the character engaging. And before you say, well, it wasn't just African Americans in Izzy's gang, what about Maul? And just adding a random Asian guy to the gang doesn't make Izzy less of a stereotype. I mean, on the bright side, I did think Izzy was one of the best looking characters, but maybe that's just me. All right, next, you have to build up your relationship score or meet certain requirements to move the story forward. Well, these weren't really hard. There were times after I ran out of questions to ask on dates or conversations on the phone that the AVN could feel a little grindy. I don't really mind the grind, but if you're waiting a while for something interesting to happen, the grind can be a bit boring. And on top of that, the AVN was mostly silent. So until RJ is able to add more sound effects, you have to deal with silent game outside of the background music. Okay, let's get into the weird. There were a few things that I had to address. The first thing is that you're a college student who studied at one of the best schools in the world for quantum physics. Where's that school? In Brazil. I have no idea, honestly, why Brazil? I looked up the best schools in the world in physics. There is no college in Brazil within the top 100 in physics. This isn't a deal breaker by any means, but why? Why choose Brazil when you could have picked like Cambridge in the UK? That would have allowed you to be outside of the US and add a little believability to the main character's backstory because it is one of the top 10 schools in the world in physics. I get why RJ chose quantum physics for the main storyline, but that could have been done better or at least in a more believable way.
It's not that serious, bro.
But then again, you are a main character in an adult game that has a body count of like 20, so I don't know how much it really matters. Another point to highlight is you can romance anyone you want with no repercussions, which I know many people don't like. So if you like consequences with romance options, then you'll likely be disappointed. Next, certain characters' quest lines could drag a little at first. Some storylines like Jamie's took a while to get going. After my 7 Realms review, some people want things to start getting interesting right away, while others are okay with the storylines taking time. So you have to decide for yourself if this is something that's actually going to bother you. Okay, last, in every single one of the lewd scenes, the female characters cough looked inflamed. I wouldn't exactly call myself an expert on women's cough, but either they look freshly waxed or they had eaten something spicy the night before. So, I will talk a lot more in depth about the adult scenes on my Patreon, where I don't have to worry about YouTube dinging my channel, so you can check it out over there if you're interested. Overall, my time with Come Home was a mixed bag. I liked many of the characters, even some of the ones I didn't want to pursue sexually like Bai or Bae. I liked the quantity of the lewd scenes, and I found some of the storylines really interesting. However, I also had a hard time with many of the characters' faces. While some of the characters had great personalities, I just didn't find many that good to look at. I also had a hard time with the main character. He was so aggressively bland that it was hard to connect with him at times. I personally love games with engaging emotional characters that I can connect with. Come Home attempts to do this with mixed success, but some relationships could feel rewarding. I look forward to seeing how the AVN ends, but I do know Come Home won't be for everyone. If you haven't checked out my video on 5 completed AVNs, you can check it out right here. Thanks for the support. If you liked my review, please like it and think about subscribing if you aren't. Until next time.